Oh, there's my sweet girl. I bet. Say
Is she
hello.
going to stay with us the whole?
No, she's definitely
How much lap patience does she have?
none whatsoever. She's gonna be here for maybe 5 more seconds.
Oh, such
See
a
if you got the mic this
cutie.
Say hello. Yeah, you're doing a good job, sweet girl. This is Babette. You've been Babette before.
Hi.
Yeah. Everybody else who hasn't can say hello. Oh, good, Babette. You won't believe what we're talking about today. I don't want to give it away, but you won't believe it. All right, you're gonna get off. Okay.
Welcome to Strange Coordinates, the show where we use brands as roadmaps to arrive at surprising places. I am Topher Burns, and I'm coming in hot.
And I'm Robert Balog. So along with our partner Idon, Topher and I lead an ad agency called Territorial that we founded after a lifetime of working with some of the biggest and best loved brands. What we do at Territorial is we help brands find their place in the world. And we do that by exploring how these interesting things like culture and history and desire and commercialism and all these fun things bounce off one another to reveal insights about what is cool about being a human.
Every episode, one of us gives the other a brand to explore. That person has to trek into the wilderness, come back with a story that they find to be the most compelling. It is using brands as compass points to discover more about the world around us.
Yes. And today we are going to be discovering something about the world very close to me, very much around me right now, which is our sweet little dog Babette, who you met at the top of the broadcast. I'm very excited about this, Topher.
Yeah, you gave me the brand Milkbone, and
Yeah.
dog treats are a fun world. And I was actually reminded of not just like the functional, and functional is the wrong word, but not just the like subject matter area of pets. But kind of the world of treats this morning when you and I, because you were on these calls with me, we had a little bit of an early start this morning. And
You did, for sure.
Well, yeah. The time difference did make it a little harsher. But it was early calls, and we're transitioning right from those calls into this recording session. And I was like, hey, I need a quick 5. And went downstairs and got myself a treat. I was like, I need to get in the right headspace. I deserve a little. So I got like one of these. You ever had these like Unreal candies?
Oh my God. Yeah, I've seen those all over the place. I haven't had them. Are they good?
Oh, they're so good. And the best part about them is that like, I really respect that like
It's an Unreal. It's called Unreal, just so people who aren't actually watching the video. Unreal.
Yeah. And they make basically knockoffs of all these different kinds of treats. And so I really respect that like their packaging is basically like, you know what this is. It's an Almond Joy.
Yeah.
Like you want an Almond
definitely.
Joy, but it has like less calories and like more whole ingredients and stuff like that. Like buy this thing. You can buy them in big bags at Costco, and it turns kind of like, those little moments where you need a little lift. It makes them.
Why is it called Unreal? Is it like made with
more
vegan
real
or
ingredients? So I think they're just playing on the,
gotcha.
It's less preservatives, less palm oils.
That feels like a real face slap moment there for me. Like, why is it called Unreal? Like, duh. Like, the dual meaning of Unreal, I didn't get it.
Well, either way, I mean, mission accomplished on these guys, and I got a treat. So I'm coming in feeling super peppy. My tail is wagging.
Topher, could you do a quick announcer read for Unreal? Just, how would you pitch that to us?
Let's see. My first reaction was to go, moms like me know that when kids need a little, when your kids need a little pep in their step, sometimes you want to reach for something they enjoy. But I don't like all those preservatives. That's why I choose Unreal. Unreal's an easy way for me to give my special little guys a lift in the afternoon, and I don't have to feel bad about it. That's Unreal, available at Costco now.
That's amazing. We did that free of charge, by the way. Unreal, so
I almost in almost any scenario where I'm recommending a product, I really want to start with moms like me know.
Yeah, exactly. You were definitely raised at a certain. I mean, that is so indicative of being raised at a very particular time.
Yeah, it's basically like the Sunny D commercial.
Yeah, everything goes back to Sunny D for sure. Sunny D's nuts.
We are editing that out. Not on our pet food. Not on our pet food podcast.
Listen, Topher, as you know, I'm a relatively new pet parent. We're approaching 2 years, which is kind of amazing.
Congratulations.
and I'm a dog parent. You are a cat parent. I don't know what it's like in the world of cat treats and foods and things like that. Because it's 2 aisles over. How could I possibly?
Yeah,
go there?
yeah,
But
yeah.
but in the world of dog food, the bucolic times of like Purina and maybe Iams being the only options has really changed, and now it's a huge amount of variety. Is the same thing happening in the world of cat food?
Definitely. Yeah, lot of variety, a lot of interesting stuff going on, and that's been going on for a while. Like the drift from like your main core dominant players into sort of like a more fractured landscape, and that I think the way you notice it is like a dog dad is just like, oh, there's a lot of cool stuff to pick from.
So cool.
And that's a fun experience. Like that's part of the fun about like Unreal candy bars or buying
Yeah.
treats for your cats and dogs is like kind of going in there and being like, oh, look at all the fun. This is this ingredient. This is from this place, like
Yeah.
it's a fun buying a treat is by necessity like a fun experience.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Totally.
you're not wrong.
And it's actually good for us professionally too, because advertising's role is to make those decision moments possible or easier. Advertising is here to actually, the only reason it really exists is so that when a consumer is faced with a choice, they have some basis for making that choice. And we can base that on emotion. You can base that on more rational things like ingredients, like you're saying. And I think seeing this variety is always a good thing for us, because it means that there's more of a role for us to play in terms of kind of helping that consumer behavior.
Totally. So, we can kind of revisit this whole idea of variety and emotion as a dog parent in involving this process. But I'd love to just kind of like give us a little bit we can ground a little bit in like the basics of milk
As we
bone.
do. This is what we do.
And then there's a bunch of different, this is going to lead us on a few different journeys, and they're all super fun. As you're talking about yourself as a new dog parent. I do have cats, but have had dogs in the past, and then as I have had a lot of experience in like the pet food category in prior
have indeed.
professional
Yeah.
worlds. So this is a lot of fun. In a lot of ways, it was kind of like a homecoming, because I have spent an enormous amount of time digging into these categories, working on very specific brands. And so like
Yeah.
being able to kind of revisit that stuff was a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed this assignment.
Okay, cool. I'm glad it wasn't arduous.
No, not at all.
All right, well, let's get into it.
So Milkbone, founded 1908.
I think I've given you consistently brands that have started around that time.
Maybe, because New Balance was kind of like in the,
It was like 1912 or something like that, wasn't
I
it?
thought it was like early 30s. But one of us didn't pay attention to the episode, and it's entirely possible it was me. But old
Yeah.
school, it has 100 years of history to it, regardless. Like
Sure.
back of napkin math, a century-old brand. Same thing here.
I didn't think it was that old either.
Started in the Lower East Side of New York.
Nice. Technically, it's on the Lower East Side, by the way.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry, that's just
I one time was
Snootiest shit
corrected
of
when
all
I
time.
lived in the Lower East Side by somebody who called it the East Village, and I was like, "You don't live here,
Yeah.
so you can get fucked." Like I don't.
Yeah, exactly.
I what's the address on your mailing label? Maybe
All
that
right,
should tell you
well.
to stuff it.
yeah, perfect. I get it. Go ahead.
But so it started on the Lower East Side in
Nice.
1908. That's back when, like the Lower East Side had factories, which is kind of a fun reminder that like New York City wasn't always just apartment buildings.
Yeah.
Then they moved to Buffalo in the 50s. At this point, they had already been acquired by the National Biscuit Company, which,
Nabisco.
yeah,
Wow.
I did not ever put together
Interesting.
that National Biscuit Company are the
for real?
words that are combined to make Nabisco. But so they were acquired by Nabisco in like the 30s. So by the time they moved to Buffalo in the 50s, they were really upping production and really becoming kind of a big concern. These days they're owned by Smuckers.
What?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah. And
And the Smucker's owned by somebody?
oh, I don't know. But it's kind of like these food. The brand has been
Yeah.
bought and sold into a variety of different kind of like CPG structures, spun out into like pets only structures,
Yeah.
and all that stuff that
Right.
comes from having supply chains that are connected to the wheat industry or the like the meat industry, stuff like that.
Yeah. I guess I just didn't think that Smucker's had that kind of, moxie. You know what I mean? I didn't think they were working with that much.
Yeah.
No offense to the good people at Smucker's.
Well,
but-
and they should feel a little miffed because Milk-Bone is actually incredibly dominant in the treats category.
Sure,
Specifically, a lot of strength in crunchy treats. So in the sort of like crunchy biscuity category, they have a massive stronghold in shelf space. Like if you go into anywhere that puts products on shelves to sell,
yeah.
they're gonna hold an enormous amount of share. You're gonna see that red box with the bone, and so that's kind of the stronghold for them. They
Yeah.
didn't invent the treats category actually, but Milk-Bone kind of like rose to prominence from a shift that took us from like kennel club dog fanciers of the 1860s through to like the mass marketed brands that started to happen around the turn of the century. And so
Yeah.
the first area that I would love to explore together is
Okay.
just basically how the creation and rise of the Milk-Bone brand really tracks through a lot of really interesting cultural and like psychological connections for the relationship between dogs and humans. So really like the story of Milk-Bone is very connected to the story of dogs moving off of the farm and having a job
Yeah.
into a home and into a family. And that's kind of like the overall arc. Because our relationship to pets has changed so significantly across the past like 150 years.
Right.
So the first phase of like dog ownership that treats show up in, that actually like predates a little bit Milk-Bone, is the urbanization of America that starts to happen in like the late 1800s, where in big numbers people are moving off of farms, starting to get office jobs, live in not really office jobs per se, but like urbanized jobs. And so in the late 1800s, you have people who prior had dogs, like culturally, a dog lived on a farm and ate scraps.
Yeah.
A dog just kind of ate whatever you were cooking and just like the tail end of that stuff,
Yeah.
And as people start to move into cities, those dogs start to not maybe have access to as many agrarian leftovers because
Yeah. Although if New York City was anything then like it is today, there was just
Plenty of
an
garbage.
abundance of chicken bones.
Yeah.
Like just
and God, I really hope it wasn't just chicken bones because those aren't great for dogs.
the fucking worst.
Yeah.
They're everywhere. I have to get Babette from like at least 5 times a walk. I have to get her away from a chicken bone.
Has she ever eaten one?
Yeah, but she's great about getting stuff out of her mouth. I can just be like, nope, we're not doing that.
Oh,
So
that's
it's
good.
super fine.
Is that
she's
because
great.
of her breed? Like, is that like they're used to like she's a Chelsea Spaniel, right?
No, she's a English Springer Spaniel.
Oh, okay. And they're like birding dogs, and they're
They're
used
birding
to having
dogs. They're
stuff.
supposed to have a soft maw.
Yeah.
And like, yeah.
Like you're
And she's just good natured too.
Yeah, she is a sweetie. So as the dogs move into the cities, you're having like labor.
I'm just thinking dogs with like bindles on their shoulder,
Yeah,
like heading, riding the rails, heading towards the city.
Yeah, gonna have to
make
buy
their
me
fortunes.
a top hat. And you're having movements about like human welfare and unionization and things like that. And animal welfare first starts to come to prominence in the U.S. around this time, like 1860s, 1870s, are when you start to see the ASPCA. And you also start to see kennel clubs. So the American Kennel Club and like all those types of associations. Like before this, breeds were like highly work focused. So you were getting just like, you had your border collies because you had your sheep. And so
Yeah.
like border collies bred with other border collies because border collies were good with keeping sheep. So like
Yeah.
that was very functional. And then you also had kind of like very wealthy people being like, oh, I
Yeah, I was
only
gonna say
keep these types of dogs. So like,
there's got to be a socioeconomic component there
yeah.
for sure.
But the thing is that purebreds kind of sat in both of those worlds because you
Right, of
had your
course.
like super fancy rich people who like super fancy dogs, and then you had your people who needed dogs that were like really specialized at doing one specific job, and so that
Right.
was really
Sure.
important. As all of those people, rich and poor, start to move into the cities, like they still like to have dogs, so you start to get kind of like more casual clubs around like, I really like these types of dogs.
Yeah.
So that creates a world where you're having like dogs not on the farm, but the dog still might be wanting to be trained to do something. And so like things like treats and
Right.
things like dog food start to develop in like those more niche passion area where we're like, we
Yeah.
need to incentivize the border collie to do some obedience stuff. So like, I'm going to give him this treat. So
Right.
treats and food kind of at an industrialized level kind of start at this point. This is predating Milkbone. Milkbone kind of picks up where that stuff starts to move into like truly industrialized, and it's kind of the entrance of brands. It was originally called Maltoid Milkbone, which
Wow, I can't believe they didn't stick with that.
yeah, they got rid of the maltoid, but it basically cued all the things that were in the treat,
Right.
which are like it has wheat products, it has a significant amount of milk, which is where they had early claims on like this is a healthy thing, like a lot of
No idea.
milk is in this stuff. It got some bone meal in there, so the milk bone, and then just so you knew that there's bone meal in there too, they made it in the little shape of the bone.
Right. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
The idea of giving a dog a cookie, how is, it's a long way from like, I've got some leftover chunks of kidney to here's a cookie. How do we get to a cookie?
I didn't uncover a lot of like direct stuff that said like here's why, but to
Yeah.
me the form factor is all about convenience. Like
Right.
you can put a bunch of milk bones in your pocket and it doesn't feel
Right.
gross. Like we're moving into people that are like living in the cities, you're off the
Yeah.
farm, like you don't have hunks of pig ear sitting around, but like you also don't want that.
Yeah,
So I think it's partly just like it's palatable in an urban
Yeah.
environment and in an apartment, like
Right.
you're not grossed out keeping them around a little bit.
Yeah.
The next thing
Yeah.
that really starts to impact our relationship with dogs, and then therein the roles that treats play in our world with them, is suburbanization. So
Right.
post World War II, we have everybody going out, getting yards, really moving into spaces where like having a dog becomes like part of the furniture. So dog ownership actually really accelerates in the suburbanization phase, where like everybody's got to have a dog now.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a piece of what suburban life is like you've got your yard and you've got your dog that's in your yard.
Yeah. What years are we talking about here, Topher?
50s to 70s, kind of that
Yeah.
like, leave it to beaver type of world.
Right.
This is a time when you start to see TV shows, not just like featuring dogs occasionally, but like about dogs.
Yeah.
For the first time,
Right.
dogs become characters.
Right.
And
Movie characters for sure.
Yep.
Lassie,
totally, Rin Tin Tin.
Rin
is
Tin
like-
Tin, Benji.
Yeah.
Oh man, and don't get me started on like all the literature, like where the red fern grows.
yeah.
And, oh,
Old
whew,
Yeller.
heartbreaker.
Those are a little
Yeah.
rough.
Yeah.
But they're arising around this time. And in parallel to a lot of this, we were talking about unionization and like human welfare, kind of echoing how people start to think about dogs too. We start in this era becoming curious about psychology, therapy, things
Right.
like positive reinforcement, things like emotional growth. Those are things that start to become cultural conversations. And so those start getting reflected in worlds of dogs too. So, in the early 50s, a dog is like a thing that is supposed to be like really, really well trained. But by the time you get into the 80s, a dog is a thing that you're starting to like wonder, is this dog happy? Is this dog, you start to
Yeah.
think about that dog in a different space.
Right. Yeah.
And so that like idea, world of positive reinforcement becomes a world that like enters into how a human relates to a dog. It's not, is the dog doing its job? It's really like, is the dog okay? Is the dog having fun? Like, and that's
Right.
because the suburbanization thing that happened is like, you started a family, your kids now have like this dog, and the dog is thought of as like a companion. The dog doesn't have a job. The dog is there to be like a pal to your
Right.
kids.
Sure.
And so your focus on the dog is more emotional. And so therefore the ways in which we interact with the dog are more emotional. So a treat is no longer a thing that is necessarily only there to incentivize the dog to do the job that it has, but it is in some ways a way to like interact with the dog.
Yeah, right. You're kind of shifting in terms of where its role in the pack is too. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting.
The like this is kind of the era where like the dogs came from the fields into the house.
Yeah.
And then the dog comes from into the house, into the family as we move into
Right.
this third major area, which you could just call the modern era. And that is where you really have like a humanization of dogs. By this point, like we're talking post 2000s, 90% of people who own dogs say they're part of the family.
Yeah.
And that isn't something that would have been said, you know, like when the
Yeah, I
dog
don't
had a
think when we were-
job to do, or even when like
Right.
in the 50s, like the dad who came back from World War II and like got the dog to like take care of the, you know, like keep the kids happy, like would
Yeah.
still be like the dog sleeping outside. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, we had a dog in the 80s when I was growing up, and I love that dog, but I don't think we were like, that dog's part of the family. You know, it was very much, he slept in the basement, and like I don't think we paid as nearly a fraction of the attention to him that I paid to Babette.
Yeah.
So,
And there's like in the pet care space, the phenomenon of dogs and where they sleep tells you a ton about sort of like the role that the dog plays in the lives of the family. Like
yeah.
dogs in farms never slept in the house. They had a dog house. They were
Yeah.
animals, and so they slept outside with the other animals.
Yeah.
And in some cases that was really important because the dog was there to make sure that like wolves didn't come and like
Right, didn't get the
yeah.
animal,
So your dog kind of like being outside was important. By the 2000s, dogs are sleeping in your bed. They're not just sleeping in your house or in your basement. They're sleeping in the bed with everybody. And that shift of the place that the dog sleeps actually tells you a lot about kind of like the role that the dog plays in the household.
Uh-huh.
In the modern era, we start to see macro shifts like families getting smaller. So our families in the 2000s and beyond are much smaller than they were in the 50s.
Yeah.
You see accelerants to that, like COVID, where there's this massive adoption.
Not
boom.
familiar. Yeah, don't recall.
None of us remember. Has nothing to do with repression. And things like digital loneliness. You see
right.
more people not opting into the like nuclear family lifestyle, or even the sort of like live around big extended families that happened before the nuclear family experiment. Both of those were situations in which there were a lot of humans to have connections with. And we're moving into a place where people not only don't live near their family, but also didn't necessarily build big families themselves. And so the idea of a fur baby starts to make more sense in a concept of having significantly less family around, maybe choosing not to have like a child, or only choosing to have one child instead of, 5. So dogs are kind of along this journey from like the late 1800s to like the early 2000s. They're kind of ready to be companions.
Right.
In whatever way we need them to be. Like in the early days, it's like, we're going to do a thing together. Like we really need to take care of these sheep. And by the early 2000s, we're like, we're trying to just be sane and make it through this pandemic together.
You're going to
like,
help me not freak out on planes.
yeah, exactly. Emotional support animals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a couple things that accelerate that through that entire arc are media. So we talked about like Rin Tin Tin moving all the way through to like Doge and dog memes and stuff like that.
Right.
You know, like media continues to enforce and accelerate these perceptions of our culture around like who they are in our world, who they are emotionally. And then, you know, once you get like business America, corporate America involved, business and corporate America will be like, for sure, you should do more of that. Like, here are products that help you do that, you know? And so like you do see a conversation between like, well, I really do care about my dog. And it's like, oh, do you care about your dog? Like maybe they would enjoy this little moment of delight, you know, like, so you just start to see marketing engines and, you know, industrial engines that kind of like help support that shift.
I think there's also this imagination shift too. Like we are really fascinated, I think, with what we perceive to be the inner life of dogs, such that like I think everyone who is a pet parent can speak in what they think is their dog's voice.
Oh, like they do like,
the things,
here's what my dog sounds like.
Yeah, she's looking at me saying like, "Mama, I don't even know you that well." Or, you know, like everybody kind of we were like putting these monologues, the inner monologues, into dogs that I don't think really was a thing that happened, you know, prior to like the influence of media, like the Can I Has Cheeseburger and all those things that are like, oh, the dog actually has this much richer internal life that we can't access, but if we could, it would sound like this. You know?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
And those are things that media and marketing both kind of like play with.
Yeah.
And to your point, they ignite the human imagination around their relationship with their pet.
Completely. Which is probably just also, sorry, I know you're teeing something up, but I think it's interesting because it's also just an extension of what made dogs human companions in the first place, was that humans read human emotions on specific wolves and decided they could bring them closer. Like I heard the story, a fact that the early wolves that would reveal more of the whites of their eyes were ones that humans would be more attracted to because it's a more human expression. Like full irises is not a thing that we kind of tend to respond to. So seeing a little bit of white is what kind of made us lean in a little bit. And so, you know, that's just a work of imagination. This dog is feeling what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
And like, we're still doing that.
Well, it's interesting, you know, like this gets into like kind of like evolutionary, like why do dogs and humans have such a close connection? And that gets brought into the world of cats, where like cats have been domesticated for far, far less time than dogs have. And the scenario in which cats were domesticated versus the scenario in which dogs were domesticated is so different.
Totally.
And dogs were brought in because dogs had a predisposition toward visual communication in a way that like matches how we think and work. So dogs signal to each other with like expressions like this means one thing, this means another. Like, you know, like I'm going to go this way. Like dogs had, early dogs had the ability to understand shared attention. It's a very rare thing in animal worlds to be able to be like that. And for somebody, the other being to be like, I'm going to also look at that. But dogs understand
100%.
that.
Totally.
And so that concept helps them be really great partners. They also hunted in a very similar way that we did, which is just like chase a thing for forever. Cats don't do that. Cats like creep and then surprise and kill really, really quickly. But humans are terrible at that. We're not good at creeping and we're not good at like really quickly killing. Like instead,
oh my God,
a human and an early dog would kill a wildebeest in the same way, which is just chase it basically to the point of exhaustion and then be able to kill it.
Yeah, can you just imagine the amount of disdain early cats were heaping on humans as we fucked up their hunting consistently?
Yeah. Still,
they're like,
my cat still
yeah.
gets that point of view when she like brings a rat into the kitchen, and I'm like, ah. And she's like, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah, totally. It's like this perfect little stalking maneuver, and like a big dumb human comes
Yeah.
clomping up. What you doing?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, totally.
beast run away. The cat's like, you fucker.
Yes, totally. Yes. So yeah, there's
I like how you had to work in some cats and all this dog talk. I know that it's
well, cats in
fair
some ways
balance.
are at a disadvantage because they don't communicate their emotions externally because that's an evolutionary vulnerability for a solitary creature.
Right.
For a thing that lives most of its life by itself to communicate like, I'm scared is bad. It's like it's a really
Yeah.
bad thing for a cat to show those things. And so cats keep all of their stuff inside. The way that cats communicate just physically their emotions is so much of a lower valence than dogs do.
Yeah.
So that's why people trust cats intuitively a lot of times less than dogs, especially if they haven't grown up around cats.
Right.
Because they
Right.
don't understand how to interpret how a cat is feeling because dogs make it so easy and
Yeah, totally.
cats don't.
Yeah.
So,
Amazing.
yeah. So all this in terms of like this like arc, what does it mean for food? It moves us from things like, we go from like table scraps to dogs eating human grade food, and we're going to get back to that like you called out.
Yeah.
At an early point, dogs having their own food was a new concept that had to be like communicated to people. Like,
Right,
there's
yeah.
different thing you should be feeding your dog. It actually
Yeah.
could be better for your dog than giving them the remainders of that blueberry cobbler. Like there's stuff there. Then treats moving from the idea of like enforcing obedience to like this reward, and even into a world of functional nutrition now, where
Right.
we're kind of looking at treats and saying, in the same way that we do with our own food, not
Right.
just how will this help you like have a happy little moment right now, because we want the
Yeah.
dog to be like excited, like that's a fun thing, but what is this doing for you? Like
Yeah.
what
Like
vitamins?
what biological processes does it support?
Yeah, like your macrobiotics and your
For sure.
teeth health and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. We're biohacking dogs, is what you're saying, basically.
Well, exactly. Like we're in the same way that we're approaching our own nutrition now. We're looking at dogs and being like, you probably could live a healthier life if you had food that was made best to work within your thing.
Right.
So that takes us to a place where you're having to use a lot of empathy in your decision-making processes about what to give your dog to eat. And so what that takes us to is a world where we're using our own human senses and programming to try and anticipate what a dog will enjoy when we get to a treat.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
this takes us to a quiz.
Oh boy. Okay. Cool.
But
I love a quiz.
this is more of
Topher.
like
I
a
love quiz.
collaborative conversation.
No, I love a quiz.
Okay.
I love a test.
I know you didn't want to necessarily be put through the agility course of having to like do the actual work on this podcast, which is very fair. But I figured we could talk through a few different components.
I'm just glad we're not in another "How good are you at your job" segment that we tend to drift into.
No, we're not going to
Perfect.
make you do that.
Great.
Instead, I'm going to be listing off qualities of a treat. So like,
Ooh, I like this.
and you're going to tell me how
it's a
much of
human or
that
dog
thing is a human-facing benefit or a dog-facing benefit.
Okay. You want like percentage or like what do you?
Whatever way. I don't have percentages, so just talk about like, is it mostly for the person
Okay,
or is
gotcha.
it mostly for the dog?
Gotcha,
and
gotcha.
in what
That's cool.
in
And-
what ways potentially?
And these are derived from. This is just sort of the way in which certain treats are described externally, or are you making these up? Like, is this taken from?
You're getting test anxiety. You'll get chill out. You'll get
Have
this.
you ever met me?
Yeah,
Topher?
yeah.
Like
just
Jesus
chill.
Christ.
We're gonna
Okay,
be
I'll
just
figure
fine.
it
Okay, so packaging, is that something that appeals to the human, or is that something that appeals to the dog?
The human, like entirely the human.
Yeah. Although I did think on this one, and like I'm sure Babat has the same thing, but like Millie, like if she hears the crinkle of a container that holds something, whether it's peas or whether it's her treats,
Yeah.
she gets really excited. So there's an audio component, but like by and large, of course, like almost everything
Yeah.
about the packaging is made to appeal to the human.
Yeah.
How about nutritional fortification?
I mean, the it's primarily for humans, but there is a portion that's for the animals.
Yeah, it's like for the dog's benefit, but the dog is not going to choose one treat or the other because it
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
have
not
any
like,
ability to know what has.
does this have prebiotics?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, how about color?
Humans, dogs don't see color.
Yes, dogs are dichromatic. They see
Yeah.
blue and yellow, but reds and greens are muted. So cues on a dog treat that say like red for meat, orange for carrot, green for veggie, dog's not going to register those. So
Yeah.
the human looks at those. Like you remember, did you have, when you were a kid, did you have the milk bones that had like all the different colored milk bones in them?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, totally.
And that like made giving your dog a treat more fun. Like you're like, oh, we're gonna give you
Yeah.
like a veggie one today. You know,
yeah,
like
you're gonna get this one.
the dog's not gonna look at that and be like, sick, it's green, because they don't actually
Nice.
know. Okay, form factor, meaning kind of the shape of a thing.
Dogs, mostly for the dog.
Talk to me about that.
The way in which like a bone, for instance, is super helpful because the bulbous end she can grab with her paws while she chews the other end. So like her dexterity is pretty limited, and so some of that is like necessary to chew something longer and larger. So like longer things are easier because they can hold one end and get the other end, and like also like the way in which their teeth are located in their mouths, they need to be able to crunch things the right way. So so shape is really important.
Okay, a lot of what you're talking about, definitely. And I was kind of lumping somewhat into like a texture world, but you're also talking about chews, which depends
Right,
on
not
whether you
treats.
call that like a
Not
treat or
treats.
not, and it depends, you
No,
know,
you're
like,
right.
but 100% from a functional standpoint, those shapes really, really do matter. In the world of like which extrusions, like does it, you know, like a dog prefer like a shape that's in a cute little chicken foot shape or it's in a
Correct.
bone?
No.
That's going to be another thing that's like human decided.
Yep, that's fair.
Let's get into texture. So this would be like how the treat is like, you know, like the texture it has in your mouth. I refuse to use the word mouthfeel. I refuse. So I'm just gonna stick with texture on that.
Yeah. Well, that's a difficult one because there are things that Babette will not eat because she doesn't know that they're based on texture. She doesn't know that they're supposed to be eaten.
Oh, like what?
What was like lettuce?
Oh, interesting.
No idea.
Right.
She's like, what?
Yeah.
Or what else did we give her? We gave her like cabbage cabbage leaf, and she couldn't figure it out what it was supposed to do. And it took her a while. Like if you give her a carrot chunk, she doesn't. She's like, is this should I eat this?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of like, what does it? It's not hard like a bone. It's not soft like meat.
Right.
It's kind of in between. So there's signals there that they need to kind of work through.
That's very, very on point for kind of like a lot of where texture cues are used in this industry is that like there is a component of this that is like fully driven by the dogs. Texture is a major cue for dogs. They love crunchy because crunchy evolutionarily kind of like reminds them of like crunching through bones and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Like there should be elements of their food that have like, and they like to gnaw on things anyways. So that kind of cues that component. There's a hidden benefit in the crunchy stuff in that it like helps clean their teeth.
Yeah, clean the teeth.
So that's maybe like a little bit more human focused, is that like we know that that's good for them, so we give them something like that. Soft and chewy treats, which are actually rising in popularity and are the big bet that Milkbone has sort of like put a lot of like new
Really?
like development into, is like they just opened up like a facility that is specifically about creating soft and chewy treats. the dog component of that maybe is like more of a human thing is just like they're so much easier for training because the dog doesn't have to
Yeah.
stop, put it down, and then like come back. But like
Yeah.
it's much safer for them to just kind of like mash, swallow. So a soft and chewy has a lot of like training components to it. There's also a little bit of like an elderly dog care moment, which is like, dogs that don't have as great teeth or have lost
Yeah.
some maybe appreciate something that's a little softer as well.
Right.
And then you mentioned like the chews and bones category, which is in and of itself its own thing. That also texture matters a lot.
Yeah, totally.
All right, two final ones. One, the second to last, smell.
It's important to both. I think it's a big trigger for dogs in terms of like indicating what is edible, but also nobody wants stinky food
Well,
in their house.
and that's where the actual smell components really go much more towards dog because we say that we don't want stinky treats, but like all the treats that dogs love are stinky.
Yeah.
And so in terms of the creation of treats, it is hugely dog centric. And then a lot of times it's like the packaging that gets brought in order to be able to like mitigate what would be kind of like from a human perspective, like a treat challenge.
Yeah.
Because like
Yeah.
the treats just smell terrible. But
Have you ever smelled a bully stick?
no,
You know
I've
what
not
bully
gotten
stick
that
is?
close to the thing.
It's bull dick basically.
Yeah,
It's
well,
a
I know
bag-
what
It's literally a bag of dicks,
Yeah.
and it smells horrendous.
Yeah, and I mean all the treats. So like the aroma, I'm reading now a quote on this one because I was digging into some of this stuff. Aroma compounds, meat extracts, smoke flavor volatiles, liver
Right.
powders drive palatability for dogs far more than other components. So the like strong smelling ingredients are like really, really irresistible to dogs. So like they
Yeah.
just love like a wonderful pungent smell and we hate it. And so that's where treats really, really, if they want dogs to love the treats, they need to make them
Yeah.
stinky.
Yeah, yeah.
And then last, flavor.
I bet it doesn't. Well, I mean, I have no idea what my dog's food tastes like, so it can't really be for me. But in terms of like it's lamb flavor, that's probably more for me than it is for the dog.
You're right in that it's a mix. It's a little bit of a mix on these things. So
Yeah.
flavor is dog centric, but kind of not in how we think it is. First off,
Ooh,
dogs
okay.
have about 1,700 taste buds per dog, and humans have about 9,000 taste buds per human. So dogs have far less precise tasting mechanisms than
Interesting.
humans do. But what they do have is very special flavor receptors that are related to meat amino acids. So they taste umami and fat very, very much. So things that are protein and fat rich are super, super appealing to dogs, but they can't taste anything else on top of that. So
Right.
all of our nuances of different flavor notes and
Right.
herbals and aromatics and stuff like that, like those don't matter to dogs at all. And so that's where flavor in terms of like human versus dog kind of
Interesting.
combine in a treat, where something like a beefy, this will be really appealing to a dog. The dog will not at all care about the cheddar flavoring, the barbecue flavoring, any of those components that kind of like
Right.
add to us what we would say like that sounds really great. Like a cheesy chicken treat where like,
Right.
oh wow, you're hitting both of the things. They're not going to get any of that like cheese flavor component on it.
Right.
So the
And
dog
peanut
just
butter is just a fat bomb basicknow for them, right? They're just tasting the fat and they're like, this is amazing.
yeah, exactly. And so peanut butter is a great area where it's like you could just give them oil, But like the fact that it like smells like peanut butter is a thing they're not going to really necessarily as much pick up on, like that flavor
Yeah.
of peanut butter. They just like
Right,
tasting
right,
the fat.
totally. Yeah.
So what this tells us is that like the formula of the treat, the like factors of the treats are like, there's so much of what goes into treats that is like human centric, that is just
Yeah.
like, what do I think is going to be like really cool for my dog to eat? And you make those decisions based on like your sensory world that you live in, and that's just not the world
Right.
that your dog lives in.
Yeah, totally. That's crazy. I mean, like we always assumed that, and I always knew that it was like obviously we have the wallet, so we're going to be the marketed to, which actually makes it does really make thinking about marketing things for pets to be a really fascinating challenge because you've got to walk that balance between, it's kind of like advertising to parents for children's products, but
Exactly.
like a little bit more subliminal in some ways.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. And it like one of the things I think that like that I remember a ton from working in the pet space is like the concept of variety is just so much more of a human concept than a pet concept. My cat doesn't care, but it does matter to me to get the variety pack because I get to be like, ooh, trout and
Yeah.
catfish today. Aren't you going to have a
Right,
wonderful
totally.
day? Like, this
Yeah.
is so summery. It's so perfect for like our August weather. Like I feel wonderful like doing that
Yeah.
stuff. And like, she doesn't care. Like the trout and catfish, the duck, like all those don't matter.
Right.
It could be duck every day for forever, and she would not miss
Yeah.
the trout and catfish. But my perception of how I enjoy eating things is why I would pay a premium to get the variety pack.
Right, totally. I mean, we do the same thing. We alternate between lamb and salmon for Babette because I just was like, I couldn't possibly serve her the same thing again.
For
What
the
does it
rest
say
of
about
her
me
life?
as a
Yeah,
chef?
are you in prison? No, yeah,
exactly.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we did our little quiz. The next thing that I want to do, Robert, is
Okay.
I've spent a lot of time in the pet food world,
Uh-huh.
and in the back of my head, I have been incubating a product, and
Ooh, I love this.
this assignment, this like podcast, was the perfect opportunity to kind of like actually test whether
Okay, I love
this
this.
product
This
should
is
go
fantastic.
into production.
I love this. This is fantastic.
So we can, I think of yourself as an investor.
Okay.
I'm going to pitch you.
Ooh, I'm in like Shark Tank.
Yeah. But then you
Okay.
can also ask me questions about the
Yeah.
world and like all surface relevant information.
Oh,
it
this
might
is so good.
It might not necessarily be in my favor, but I'll tell you the truth about kind of like all the factors of this thing, and then
Okay.
we can dive into whether or not this thing should be made.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So, Robert,
Yes.
I'm here to tell you about the newest revolution in pet treating. And this brand is called Guts.
I'm already intrigued.
So you may or may not know, but 25 to 30% all the environmental burden of agriculture in the world today is attributed to the needs of dogs and cats.
Wow.
So human grade
Wow.
is something that everybody's really into, but actually it's not going to make your dog or cat any happier. And in fact, dogs and cats are very attracted by the flavor and nutritional profiles of animal byproducts. So that's why we're making Guts. Guts is 100% formulated by pieces of animals that otherwise would not end up in human plates. They're things that we have decided we're not going to eat. We call it nose to tail nutrition.
I love it.
And it's something that we know your dogs and cats are absolutely going to love. So we hope you are going to have the courage to get some guts.
Oh my God. I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible. It's a great pitch. It's a really good pitch. Tell me about the form factor. What are we talking about? Are we talking about a range of products? Are we talking about like pieces of intestine that are freeze dried? How are we serving this up?
We're going to be able to process these animal byproducts in a wide variety of form factors that make them not only nutritionally valuable and available for your animals, but they're going to be delightful for those animals and easy to administer. So we can extrude these into kibble and little biscuits. We can also create things that are softer and chewier for your senior dogs or for treating and training moments. We can also turn these into toppers, so things that appear on top as like little flavor accents on top of other food, maybe to make kibble more appealing so that your dogs are eating something that is crunchy and chewy, but they want a little bit of like some zhuzh, some flavor on top of it.
What? So when I buy dog food currently, I might often see as one of the ingredients something like chicken meal or lamb meal or beef meal. How is that different than what you're proposing with guts?
Well, this is a major area where it might not be necessarily super positive for guts. So I was like, I just get pissed off by the human grade shit. Like, it just really pisses me off. So I was like, I really want.
Do we break character right now, by the way?
No, we can.
Okay.
Sorry, I should. You're right, sir. I apologize. Well, it is an unfortunate truth already. About 1/3 of the almost 10 million tons of dog food that is being produced in the U.S. is already comprised of animal byproducts.
Okay.
So those components of the supply chain, I guess you would say, are in some ways already being fed back into the production lines of dog and cat food.
Uh-huh. And in a world where single source proteins are capturing the imagination of consumers, is there an opportunity for guts to play in that space as well, to be less about a mashup of things and more about simple single source? I ask this because as you may or may not know, we have a dog named Babette, and we oftentimes get for her at the TJ Maxx this kind of like multi-bag that has like trachea and horn and hoof and tail, like all these bits, and it seems like it's very much like somebody's just packaging it somewhere, but I think it's not branded in a way that feels like it has any perspective or point of view. So do you think guts can kind of live into this space of single source proteins?
Well, it's interesting you ask about sort of single source, because I think what we would say is that one of the most important components of a responsible, sustainable treat world for your pets is don't compete for meat. We should not have our dogs and cats taking food off the plates of humans. So sometimes when people talk single source, they're saying, I want human grade lamb, and that is a real waste of that human grade lamb, because that is basically meaning that you're taking sort of like a super high investment protein that currently is a thing that only humans are eating. Once you start to create a larger demand pool, that means that you're starting to create a larger amount of demand overall for a very high value, energy intensive, environmentally detracting protein. Whereas, we absolutely can live in a world, guts can totally live in a world where we say this is a lamb bomb. You're just getting all the pieces of the lamb. You got some lung in there, you got some liver, and those are the things that in the wild dogs prize. So we can lean into your dog's natural sort of instinctive desires to eat byproducts and can still live in a space where people like to think of their dogs as wild creatures, which incidentally, by the way, dogs have been evolving since the beginning to not be obligate carnivores, which is different than cats. Cats got to eat meat completely. But a dog has been living among humans long enough that they actually require nutrients outside of a fully carnivore diet. And so they've evolved to eat more like what humans eat. So eating exclusively carnivore stuff is actually not ideal for your dog. And your dog does need other components and nutritions that wouldn't come from just eating lamb guts all the time. But that's not a conversation that we need to have because fortunately we can lean into market tailwinds that are humans think that dogs are wolves and they want dogs to eat like wolves do. And so we can enable and lean into those instinctive sort of like cues and say, we got you. We got your belly full of lamb guts. And we can dish those up.
There's a lot of options out there, sir. Who is your ideal consumer?
Well, you and I both want to make some money. So let's position this as a premium product.
Okay.
And let's make sure that we're leaning into, safety cues, premium cues of sourcing. We can talk, about the lives that the creatures that we are grinding up into these dog treats that they led. So we can do a lot of sort of like terroir. These can have regional cues. We can make sure that Guts has like a fun, sort of irreverent feel, but we'll also make sure that there's we can talk sourcing so that we can get our like price points up. Now I'm your person that you get hired to do the due diligence on, and you talk to me in the background. And let's imagine you're basically like, okay, cool, but like, is this guy really accomplishing his goal? The goal being, if I'm making Guts, right? Like the reason I put Guts together is I was just like, I get really annoyed about this human grade stuff, which I think is ridiculous. Like it's environmentally ridiculous.
Yes,
I think
agree.
it's also emotionally ridiculous. I think you've gone so far as to imagine that like, I like my pet so much, my pet must be me. And I think that's just not the case. And I think it's stopping you from being able to appreciate your pet as the creature that it is by saying like, you must appreciate and need all the same things I do.
Right.
And so that's a failure of kind of like empathy, is to understand that like you can love a thing, but you don't have to make that thing you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think like, to me, Guts helps accomplish that, navigate that emotional territory where it's like your pet needs things that are different and likes things that are different than you. Like it's not gross when your dog rolls around in a dead squirrel. Like there are reasons why it is obviously it is gross, but your dog loves that for reasons that like are, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. But then the other part of me is just like environmentally, this is like, I just like hate the human grade stuff. And so I felt like Guts was a way to kind of like take that on.
Yeah.
I was excited to pitch this to you and be like, Guts is the thing we should do. Like, let's quit this stupid podcast and let's go make a treat. And what I found the more I researched it is like the pet food category, especially like mainstream pet food category, already has an enormous amount of circularity built into it.
Yeah.
And that takes us back to something that you had, which is, you said at the very beginning that like dog food and treats are the history of dogs eating human scraps. And I think you can take that even farther and not just start it at the farm, but you can go like all the way back to the beginning.
Back to fire.
Yeah. When we're hunting with dogs, we're taking some of that higher value meat, but we're leaving some of the other stuff that maybe like we don't think is as tasty. And the dogs love that. And so there's this really interesting nutritional connection that Milkbone is still putting into their treats today.
Yeah.
They have their factory in Buffalo got accredited for this circularity award. It's called the True Zero Waste Facility. And that means that they need to avoid 90% of the landfill waste that would otherwise happen in their facility. So they've reduced the amount of landfill waste that they put out in their factory by 90%, which is huge.
That's crazy.
And it's cool because to me, it's a ringing endorsement for why this like niche pet treat and food brands are actually environmentally problematic. It's like this really interesting place where scale and the old ways of doing things is actually better for the environment.
No, it's true. I mean, it is possibly the one place where that type of circularity really exists. Even so, we get this bag of their like duck jerky from Tractor Supply, and you can tell that it's basically just the bit that is remaining on the duck breast when they kind of like high speed processing
Yeah.
blade comes through and like takes the breast off that's going to be sold to humans, and there's just like this little bit that's stuck on like probably like right on the breastbone or something like that they then reuse as this duck jerky for dogs. And it's like, I'm not assuming that they took like the finest cut of duck and they sliced it up into jerky. That just wouldn't be financially sustainable for them.
Right.
And so it is really interesting to see that type of circularity built into a system for feeding dogs that we could explore on some, more deeply into the human food system. Like instead of having human grade dog food, we kind of need like dog grade human treats, like things that are derived
Yes.
from the stuff that we're otherwise throwing away.
Totally.
Because like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yes. I love that. And that's actually the weakness of the guts concept that I originally had, which is like, it's all, byproduct stuff. And the challenge, if you go wholly into all byproducts all the time for everything, is that a lot of the byproducts that aren't already being used in the world of pet food and treats, they also have purposes. They are things that aren't just getting funneled into a landfill and left to rot between pieces of plastic, but they're actually being put back into things like fertilizers, agricultural products, like even some like things like plasticky build. Like there are a lot of components here.
Right.
And so interestingly, if you took all of those things and you said like, all right, like we're going to sell them to this like new conglomerate guts that's like funneling all these byproducts into animals, and it's all 100% animal byproduct stuff. If we are a higher bidder for those byproduct things than the like fertilizer world, the agricultural products world, their alternatives, if they aren't buying the animal byproducts, are like petroleum-based stuff, chemicals that actually like have a higher amount of impact either to produce or to implement on the environment. So stealing animal byproducts from that portion of the supply chain and funneling them into the dogs and cats' mouths means that we're actually having an overall, on a life cycle analysis, worse impact on the environment. So that's where guts could make you and I, Shark Tanky dudes, a lot of money, but actually might not accomplish the larger goal, which is to benefit the environment. Because I think in a reaction against human grade malarkey, decided that like everything needed to be guts. And what I didn't understand is that like most of the pet food category has guts already.
Yeah. Wow. Really nice way to land that ship. That's great. Topher, I have a question for you about the namesake of this episode, Milkbone. So they've been around since 1908. They've seen the rise of different types of pet companionship and ownership. What do you think is one of the secrets of their longevity?
I would say there's a few things. And a lot of them go back to like the beginning of why they started and were successful. One is that they went hard into a brand, into this space as a brand. So there were treats did exist, but they solved form factor and brand immediately. So they solved form factor in terms of like, hey, this is it's not too stinky. It's something your dog enjoys. It has ancillary benefits that we later enjoyed in terms of the crunchy stuff and things like that. We're going to load in some really easy cues like, oh, there's different colors. So like you like it, they're really simple. You can just snap them apart and toss them in there. They are cheap to produce. They have enormous amount of shelf life. They have been branded really phenomenally in terms of like, it looks like a bone and I know my dog likes bones, so I'm giving it another bone to chew on. So like the form factor is actually something that was like super early on a component of this product. And then they have like an iconic set of branding where it's like it's the bone, it says milk bone, the logo looks like the product, so you have a consistent experience. It's super memorable. They have not messed with the expression of their brand for a really long time. So red box with everything else kind of like stacked on top of it means that then they've been able to lean into the inertia of their like dominance in the market. So you have like an entirely red shelf space that is like all these different offerings that we can provide you. So they have let sort of like the ease of production, the overall appeal of the form factor, and the dominance in the market all kind of work for them, and kind of like load up on like those have allowed them to like create the long-lasting success that they have.
Yeah, it's interesting because like we had a exploration on one of our episodes on Cuisinart where we were talking about how brands become categories, become synonymous with the category, and I feel that Milk-Bone has kind of played with that for a very, very long time.
Totally.
And we talked also in that same episode about the dangers of doing so, and I think they've navigated that really, really well.
Yeah.
And kind of like really took up the space when they needed to, and then I think are now kind of just sitting back and being not being made irrelevant as things shift into other form factors and stuff. I think they're really riding it out well.
Yeah. There's a quote that I came across that was like a sign of Milk-Bone's ubiquity. Early on, interestingly, they leaned into content marketing. So we're talking like early days of Disney. Milk-Bone pays to have an episode where like Pluto gives Minnie's dog milk bones in an effort to endear himself to Minnie's dog because Mickey and Minnie are dating. And so Pluto wants to make sure that they're going to be pals as well. So he gives her milk bones and then she rewards him with a kiss or something like that. So like they've been doing content marketing and like playing in the world of entertainment for a really long time. There was this quote from Cheers where Herb says, "It's a dog-eat-dog world, and I'm wearing Milk-Bone underpants." That like,
wait, who's Herb?
I don't know. Is that the guy on Cheers? Who's this sad guy? I never watched Cheers.
Norm?
Yeah. Same shit.
The great American character Herb from Cheers.
I don't know. Nobody's Norm. Like, Norm's so remarkable. It's not like I confused Herb and like.
I mean, there was a whole thing on the show where every time we walked in, everyone went, Norm!
Oh.
Which would be weird if it's like, Herb! Yeah, it's not as nice.
That's fair.
But good quote nonetheless.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know when we started this episode, Topher, that we were going to start with an unpaid endorsement of Unreal Candy Bars and end by trying to create a product. And you've taken us on such a trip here.
Has it been a treat?
It has been a treat.
All right.
It has been a treat. We needed the endurance of a dog to get to
chase this one down.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much for all that. That's amazing. And as a dog owner, I really appreciate or dog parent, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about my dog parenthood for this long without people just sort of glazing over.
I've got one little nice snackable surprise to deliver here at the end.
Oh, okay.
And this treat is what brand will you be chasing down?
Ooh, yes. I almost forgot.
And, you mentioned this at the beginning of the episode, but we've stumbled into a fair amount of kind of like historical or retro stories where we're kind of like, oh, this brand started in 19-dickety-2 and it, like that sort of thing. And that has, I want to invert that. I want to challenge ourselves a little bit.
Ooh, I love it.
I want to do an eminently modern brand.
Okay.
A brand that is super relevant right now, one that we talk about a lot, and is transitioning day by day. So this is going to be less of like, they had this heritage and they da-da-da-da. And it's you're not going to have 100 years. You're going to have to figure out how to talk about this in a much shorter time horizon.
Okay.
Because the brand that I want you to lead us on an adventure about is OpenAI.
Ooh, that's cool. Oh, man. That's really cool. I mean, there's so many places to start from our perspective. Like they just recently did a whole brand relaunch, which is actually quite gorgeous.
Yep.
There's some interesting ethical backroom dealings when, they were supposed to have a trust in overseeing them that was going to keep everything for the public benefit. And they somehow decided not to do that anymore.
Maybe
This is really interesting.
Yeah. There's so much there, but it's all recent. And, it's a brand that you and I interact with a fair amount now.
That's true.
But it's also like there's a house of brands. What's the relationship between OpenAI and ChatGPT? How does it come to life in product? Like there's so much stuff.
Yeah, this is great. I'm so glad you gave us something from this century.
Yeah.
So
we've been living in the yesteryear.
We have.
But I'd like to, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I thought it'd be fun to do a little palate cleanser and do a brand of today.
I love that. That's awesome. All right. Well, that's going to be super, super interesting. I'm going to do the whole thing with ChatGPT as my co-pilot, so that's going to make it a lot easier on me. No, that's going to be great. So cool. Well, for that, join us next time. You've been listening to Strange Coordinates. It is the show where we use brands as roadmaps to arrive at surprising places. Your hosts are Topher Burns, who has been really, really doing it today, and myself, Robert Balog. To learn more about our agency, Territorial, go to our website. It's weareterritorial.com. And there you can fill out a quick little form to join our mailing list where we'll send you all kinds of fun stuff like updates on these episodes. We actually just, we're very exciting. We just, and people who subscribe to our newsletter will hear this, we'll have this in their inboxes momentarily. We just won a design award from the esteemed publication Graphis. That's the kind of news you can get when you subscribe to our newsletter. So do so, and then follow us on LinkedIn as well. That'd be pretty cool.
Yes.
We're also on TikTok now, which is great. We're in everywhere. We're ubiquitous.
And this episode has been a lot about positive reinforcement. And if you wanted to give us a little, that's a good boy, then we would highly, highly recommend you bopping over to Apple Podcasts and leaving us a review. The praises and suggestions for new things that you want to look at are deeply welcome, and they help other people find the show. So give us a little pat on the head. Go to Apple Podcasts and review Strange Coordinates.
Yeah, and if there's a brand that you want us to dig into, let us know.
Absolutely.
That'd be super fun to do.
Yes.
All right. Well,
thank you everybody so much.
Thanks, you all.
Bye.
Bye.